Hey guys, it's nice to be with you all wherever we're finding you, wherever you get a chance to watch this. So obviously it's now a completely different idea to the workshop. So Jason and I are going to run through a couple of different ideas around joy in business and the practice of joy. And for the rest of the week, we're going to be dropping you guys little daily challenges. So some of them will be some writing reflections, others will be little activities. One is watching a movie. That's the longest one. Most of them are like very quick and easy things that can slide into your day, conveniently. We all know that you're very busy people, but yeah, we do kind of, now that you're here and you're engaging with this content, to the best of your ability, really try and allow yourself permission to want joy, to desire joy, to see where it comes up in your daily life, to just have it as your background theme. Keep coming back to where is the joy? What does joy mean to me? What makes me feel joyful? If you imagine those times where, I don't know what makes you guys feel like kids, but I know, and I'd love to hear from what Jason would have to say from this as well. But the reason I walk barefoot, for example, is that often I get caught on a certain type of ground that feels a certain way, and it makes me feel like a kid. It makes me just feel like all bubbly and alive, and like, when you're playing in the mud and you're just laughing. That's one of the things I absolutely love. Another is, when I don't know, silly things like when I also, again, bare feet, but when I play in the waves, with your feet in the waves, it also just immediately makes me feel like a kid, just easy and free, and you can kind of just laugh and giggle. Yeah, Jace, what makes you feel like a kid?
Yeah, so many things. But I also just so enjoy, well, my biggest thing is kind of being out and about if I need to be out and about, and being able to kind of have moments of not really caring who's like kind of seeing how I'm acting as an adult out there, but then being silly and playing and kind of kind of getting overly excited and getting a little bit loud. And some of my favorite things kind of um, that I do on a daily basis that bring me this kind of childlike joy are my exploring. So I really enjoy exploring and being like, I have obviously like an app or whatever it may be, for instance, and learning about the new kinds of plants and everything that I'm seeing every day. And like, I get really excited, like stopping and asking all these fun kinds of questions about them, and like, collecting things when I can and learning all about them. Um, that's one of my easiest and most playful kind of ways of sort of enjoying my day, and therefore feeling joyful.
Oh, the one I was just thinking of, Jess and myself, we were staying at a friend's house, and he stays out near like Fleer Bay area, Mossel Bay, like just past there, Michael.
Oh yeah.
And we were staying on his farm, and it's like right on the beach. They've got like this really epic, like private, or kind of private beach vibe. And Jason and I were down there with the crew one day, and the two of us got so excited because all over the beach there were these rocks that just had this like particular shine, and there were all these cool shells and like stuff you don't usually find. Like, they're not all over South Africa. And the two of us ran up and down the beach for the next like half an hour to 45 minutes, just being like, oh, look at this one. Did you see this one? Look at this other one that I found. Like, so cool. And, I think as adults, like, so often self-consciousness stunts our play and our ability to have that feeling, and to the point where we almost disallow ourselves to feel it when it's so readily available. Like, it's another thing that brings me joy that I was thinking about, Jess, when you said your adventures and that kind of thing, like, is I love foraging. I really, really enjoy when I'm on a walk and stuff. I love collecting things. I just like it, and it doesn't really serve a huge purpose. I do stuff with it after because now it's there, so I might as well do something with it. But at the time, it's really just because I enjoy the whole process of collecting things. And that's a really simple thing. You go on a walk, it changes nothing in terms of the time that you're using or what you need to like prepare, to just allow yourself to collect things on the way, or to walk barefoot, or to wherever the impulse takes you. Like, just kind of actually allowing joy to exist in your life, and ask yourself, you know, instead of like, oh, but why would I do that? Ask yourself, why not? Why wouldn't I do that? You know? And I think the more that we allow ourselves to notice those times that we want to choose joy, it gets easier and easier to do.
I think like
So,
a good way of maybe,
oh, Nanook. Sorry, we have a dog now. I want to introduce you guys, but he's now barking. Nanook.
one of the things that, like you were saying, got me thinking. Now I'm just hearing him bark.
Wait, let me go connect him. Come here.
Okay, so Carrie just kind of went and found out why Nanook was barking. But everybody, this is behind us. This is essentially the Sprouts cheerleader from now on. I've adopted a dog who's coming on Tuesday. So meet Nanook. He's a wolf and we're very excited.
Yeah.
But getting back to what we were saying, I was kind of like a good example I thought of was, you know, after you've kind of had a drink or two, whether it be on a night out or an evening in or whatever it may be, and you've had that drink or two and you kind of, yeah, okay, maybe not always for the best, but you kind of drop those inhibitions and you kind of move into the space that, okay, yeah, we're feeling lots of joy from the hormones that are released in our brain, but a large part of the joy that we feel is from that kind of loss of inhibition or loss of concern for what everybody else is thinking, and kind of moving into the space that really just is kind of like this pure joy that you would kind of think of yourself as having had as a kid. And yeah, so maybe think about it that way, like, you know, what would it be like if I had a drink, but I didn't actually had a drink, and I was able to create that kind of joy in other moments with that kind of letting you know, your guard down.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think that kind of takes me nicely to the next point about, like, you know, the practice of joy. And I think I do believe that joy is a practice, and I think a lot of the time it also, and the reason I've been kind of engaging with this, like, what does it feel like to feel joyful, is because we spend so little time with joy a lot of the time, we do forget what it feels like, and we almost have to reintroduce ourselves to the feeling of joy. And again, just kind of using it as that backtrack of noticing where it comes up in your life. And when you begin to notice it and how it presents itself in your life, you can give it more space. Because you for one, you get to learn what does bring you joy. Like Jason and I have kind of, you know, now giving you guys a few different stories and ways to understand joy and to access it in your lives. But then identifying, yeah, how it actually occurs in your daily existence and how you can make those things more prevalent to yourself. Because I think, again, so much of the time we get locked into this idea of joy is like, you know, and happiness are only available in these extraordinary circumstances where we're off for a week, or, you know, we're having a huge party, or whatever. But joy is available in abundance everywhere. And the more that I work with joy, the more I realize that.
So you kind of also, just as you mentioned the word happiness, you gave me this kind of triggered this memory of something that I know we probably discussed at some point, but this kind of learning to see that difference between genuinely the meanings of joy and happiness. And happiness is kind of those more fleeting moments, end of a project, achievement, getting a new dog, you know, whatever it may be. Those are kinds of happy moments that do happen and can be very distinguished from the rest of your day, whereas joy is obviously more something that you can kind of think of as something that can be achieved permanently, because it's not just in those massive triumphs and end of the day chills and you know, winning of prizes and projects and stuff. It's more in that kind of everyday existence, or that kind of deeper part of yourself that kind of manages and handles all of your emotions of the day and everything of the day, it kind of comes back to this idea that joy is very much potentially something that is able to be kind of achieved on a large scale. And that doesn't mean there is no room for feelings of overwhelm and stress and sadness, because it's kind of a different concept in that of, like Kerry said, fleeting moments of happiness. Which also means that working on bringing joy into your life and your business can be achieved, because it is possible to kind of get that underlying sense of joy in kind of everything that you do and everything that you are.
Well, I think it's about grounding in joy. So what are the things that we ground ourselves in? And I think that's like one of the most useful tools I've ever worked with, is the idea of what is the story that you're telling yourself. So what I've just asked you guys to do is essentially focus on building your story around joy, by noticing its existence in your everyday life. But another part of this whole kind of journey is looking at what story do you tell yourself every day, and what story do you feed? Because life is as beautiful as the words you can use to describe it. 9 times out of 10, that is the state of our being. Like, think about, for example, if you're grappling with some emotional hurdle, right? Like there's this thing, and you're just like, you got your teeth into it, and you're in the mud, and it's all happening. And when you find the words that match the feeling, there's a sense of like catharsis, or there's that aha moment, or an epiphany, or a click, an alignment, or whatever. There's this sensation of something coming together. And that is kind of illustrates how important language is to us in our ability to access and kind of live. Our accessibility to life and to being life happens through language because of various different reasons, but that's kind of the outcome of how we live life. So the words that we use, or the story that we feed ourselves, is literally the foundation of everything that you experience over and above that. So again, what are you grounding in? So taking a step back and looking at, where do your thoughts exist 90% of the time? If you had to catch yourself in the day, where are your thoughts? Catching yourself at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., where do those thoughts go? Where do they revert back to? And that's essentially, again, a process of, you've fed the story and fed the story and fed the story, and your brain has almost formed a habit of using that as your grounding. So for a lot of people, it's anxiety. That's a very common space and story that people feed, of course, because life can be a lot and can be very overwhelming to handle, and we often don't have the tools to build a different story, so we revert to anxiety. A lot of the time we revert to romance. A lot of people kind of obsess over their romances. I know I'm guilty of doing that, and that becomes like the story that you're constantly feeding. Others, it's what have I yet achieved? It's outcome based. So just kind of spending time with that thought, and then with this parallel of beginning to notice and work with joy and identify what brings joy into your life, what you're essentially doing is empowering yourself to create a different grounding, a grounding that feeds you and brings you inspiration, motivation, energy. Choosing joy doesn't mean denying deadlines or financial realities, or being an adult. It's not doing that at all. It's simply saying that you can choose to accomplish those things through a lens that is joyful, and that habitually chooses to notice and kind of absorb the joy. Or you can look at life through a very different lens, of a different kind of narrative that you've been feeding. So again, this is why I say joy is a practice. And I'm also not discrediting, the role of like mental illness, for example, in how complex these issues can be. But these are nonetheless very helpful tools within any person's life to bring in and utilize as a part of your toolbox, right? But there is, I sort of lost my train of thought there. What was I saying? All right, so what I was saying was, joy is a practice. And when I say practice, I mean, you know, identifying what brings you joy and then actively bringing those things into your life and noticing when you've forgotten to be joyful. You know, it works similarly to a mindfulness practice. Those moments of mindfulness when you realize that you are way down the fantasy path, like, you know, you've climbed the mountain and gone over the hill and across the ocean kind of thing. But then you come back. That's your mindful moment when you realize you've lost the mindfulness. Joy practice is quite similar in that when you realize that you've forgotten to feed the joyful narrative, you come back and you bring it back to that joyful script and you anchor yourself in what colors do I have around me that make me feel good? What, you know, what textures do I like to feel on, you know, on in my clothes? What makes me feel comfortable? You know, what do I enjoy drinking that brings me joy? And then actually spending time with those things. So one of the practices that, you know, for me has been one of the absolutely most like life-changing, and I've been practicing for, you know, with quite a lot of discipline for about 3 years now, is a daily gratitude practice. So every day writing down my gratitudes for, I write a list of about 4 to 6. I started out with just 3 a day, but now I write, you get to a point with this practice where you kind of never really run out of things to be grateful for. But I write every day and I sit, and that's how I start my morning. And not only does that start my joyful story and feeding my joy story every day with that initial start, it helps me notice what I do feel grateful for, because so often we skip over the small details. But if you're writing daily gratitudes, you can't write my family, my house, and food every day. Like that's not, you know, that's not really a practice. You have to highlight the little things that bring you joy every day. So, you know, today I'm really grateful to be here with Jess and having this opportunity to chat to you guys. I'm really grateful that Nanook made me laugh earlier by being a hooligan. You know, and I'm really grateful that I had a really awesome tea date with a friend this afternoon and we got to like really bond. And these are just, again, these are tools that help you identify or bring you joy and then to practice the grounding. But Jess, I don't know if you want to chat a little bit about your gratitude practice, because I know you've also got yours.
Yeah. So, okay, also similarly to Carrie, my favorite thing to do, one of my main daily things, is also a morning or whatever time of day, but morning gratitude practice, which, yeah, includes sitting and writing down also a bit of a list of the kind of things that most likely would have brought me joy that kind of the day before, or maybe are more significant, larger things that bring me, that I'm grateful for on like a larger scale as well. But I found, for instance, with kind of everything that I'm doing at the moment, that being doing my master's and then also running Sprout, and you know, with the both of them kind of having lots of tasks that, you know, are let's say more admin-y tasks, which, you know, aren't the kind of best thing to do all the time, is bringing in making sure that my kind of daily schedule at least includes 1 or 2 or 3 of like the favorite, or my favorite parts of all the things that I do in it, to ensure that I'm kind of continually reminding myself of all of those things that are the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, the things that are driving my passion and whatever. And obviously, for the most part, I enjoy sort of, you know, most of the things that I get to do, but you do get those things that maybe feel like a little bit repetitive, or you're a bit tired to push through or whatever. And having kind of treating myself with some of the tasks that I get to do in a day kind of reinforces this idea that this is a task that brings me joy, and I'm using it to kind of propel my day forward, which really just brings me back to the idea that there is so much joy in the not so much the life I've decided to create for myself, or the path I've decided to take to, you know, make myself the happiest, like most joyful version of Jess. So I really enjoyed that. But I mean, for me, some of the also, I guess, bigger things I enjoy doing are breaking my day up into, or breaking the kinds of, say, let's say exercise or whatever things that I want to do, and splitting them up over the day, so that I kind of have these moments where I can just like move back into myself, put my phone aside, and mostly for me it's kind of reconnecting with nature and reconnecting with everything that's around me. um but yeah, those are two of my kinds of like most important things that I try to implement on a daily basis to ensure that I'm finding joy, sort of throughout the day. I think another thing is also, which I'm particularly trying to work on, structuring my time better so I have more time for, you know, more time for fluidity in my life. But one of the things that brings me the most joy is kind of being able to be spontaneous with how I do things and how my day runs, which kind of then means that I get to match what my energy for the day with what I'm doing, which really kind of brings me a lot of joy, um, and ensures that I'm also sort of super productive and whatever else it may be.
Yeah, I was going to chat about this is the other thing about joy that I think is quite important to understand in business, particularly, is that often I think we're kind of under the illusion that if we give in to joy, if we allow joy into our lives, we're suddenly going to stop ticking the boxes. We're suddenly going to stop meeting the deadlines. Like, we almost believe that there's not enough space for joy somewhere along the line, and that again, if we feel joyful, then we're kind of going to let go of the reins, and like it's all going to come crashing down, sort of thing. So it's that feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Joy arrives in your life and then you immediately think when it's going to leave, as opposed to really just spending time with what's arriving as it's arriving. And I guess one of the hard realities...
Quite like addicted to it.
You are?
No, I'm saying like you can almost rather kind of spend time getting addicted to this kind of feeling of joy, because like you say, it can be something that can be kind of continually experienced. It's something that can be very healthily, in a way, addicted to, knowing that there is more coming. It's not, but carry on your point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, one of the very hard truths about life is that there will be loss, right? Like, I think that's ultimately the truth. And I think as entrepreneurs, we almost face that a lot more. It's not as sugar-coated, I suppose, for us, the reality that loss is, potentially at the doorstep all the time. And we have to find the resilience to kind of cope with that. And I think a lot of the time that means that we do feed the narrative of anxiety, because we believe that that's going to keep us showing up and that's going to keep us doing the things that we need to do, as opposed to feeding the joy, because we do somehow believe that to feed the joy is to then, in some way lose control or drop the reins or bring on that inevitability of loss that much closer. And I think everyone has their own relationship with these things. So it might be worth thinking about, why do you allow joy when you do? Why don't you when you don't? What are you using to motivate yourself? Where are you grounding in these different ways? But it's essentially the story of the carrot versus the stick. Which one are you using for yourself? And the great thing about joy is that joy presents you with so much more joy, and it allows you to be joyful in the moment. So because I appreciate joy, because I appreciate that, my cute little flats around me, and I appreciate the way that I've done the space, and I appreciate, it's got quite a lot of sort of feminine energy, and it's all of my little bits and bobs that I have in here have a story. Every item has a story, and I love that about my space. And that brings me joy right now, but it also motivates me to want more of a beautiful space, to create more beauty, because I can then absorb more beauty and I get more joy. So, So I think, yeah, it's just, again, it's these limiting beliefs that kind of stop us in our tracks with all of this. And that sense of vulnerability, that if we are joyful, we have something to lose. And I think if you can come to terms with the reality of loss in some way, if you can develop your relationship with loss and accept its presence, you will also further your chances of experiencing joy. And I think I fundamentally believe that. And one of the tasks that we're going to give you for this week, watching Brené Brown's A Call to Courage, actually speaks about the relationship between gratitude, joy, and loss in particular. So I think that's going to be really interesting, and I'm keen to hear what you guys think to say about that. And then I think for final comments, it was just Jess wants to touch a little bit on her experience of managing 5 million things all at the same time and having joy in her life. And then it's the task list for the week. So yeah, it's been actually really, really fun to unpack this topic with you guys. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity. I'll leave it to Jess.
Awesome, Care. So yeah, this year in particular has been kind of a crazy year all over the show, or rather all over the show in terms of there being so many new things. And I've obviously kind of very much based on the way I was raised and stuff, I knew that I had to, make sure that I was going to be enjoying, every day and being grateful for the opportunity to do all of these awesome things that I'm able to do thanks to support from friends and family and whatever else it may be. So I've really had to kind of spend a lot of time finding the little ways and the even not so little ways that really do bring me daily joy in kind of as many of the things as they can. So, that can be for me really, really small things. For instance, when I'm sitting doing, say design work or watching my videos for my master stuff or whatever it may be, is I love putting on my favorite music and kind of jamming through it, or alternatively listening to some of my favorite podcasts, and which are all have a lot of really cool humor in them, and then kind of being able to sit and enjoy what I'm doing while also learning something new, having a good chuckle, having a good jam, whatever that may be. So those are kinds of small things that I try to do with at least one task I know that I can multitask on in a day. Playing that music, listening to that podcast, having a bit of a jam, kind of enjoying that I'm sitting and able to make money and able to do these things that I'm doing as like a young woman and whatever, and but also then really enjoying doing them. So those are some of my my like the small things that I enjoy doing. But there's also, I think, like I said to Carrie, my best or some of my favorite practices of joy are kind of promising myself that every day at the end of the day I'm going to make an effort to phone a friend, phone a family member, phone somebody important in my life, or visit or whatever it may be. This year more phoning than visiting, but to for one hear all about whatever it is that's going on in their life at that moment, which I kind of have like a track on all of the things, and then being able to share all of the really fun and awesome things that happen in my day. And I find I get myself really, really, really stoked and hyped up sharing it with these people, because it kind of then ends up reminding me that, wow, even if today maybe I wasn't stopping enough to see how much joy there was in the day, when I'm sitting and reiterating it to people afterwards, I just feel my energy rising and I'm like, this was really fun. I actually really enjoyed this. This brought me a lot of joy. And I've kind of found, over time with that that habit that I've kind of had of sharing that joy, it's kind of come back to a point now where I am sitting doing them by myself, and I'm thinking, this is the kind of thing I remember saying for the last few days that brought me a lot of joy, and they therefore then start bringing me more joy in that moment, if that makes sense. Because then I'm kind of like, yes, this is one of those things that I remember raving about last night, and now I'm experiencing it again, and then I can get into this very sort of excited, happy mode, which can then carry through any other frustration or any other difficult things that I'm like kind of dealing with at that time. So yeah, definitely that. And then honestly, kind of, making sure that I have time to kind of treat myself, and even if that's at the same time as me doing other things. So obviously, as a person who works online, sometimes one of my favorite things is going to a coffee shop, being able to treat myself to a coffee, one of my favorite coffees, whatever it may be, and and being able to, for instance, sit there and work and think, this is really cool. I get to do something that's super fun and treating myself, but I'm also kind of being really productive, and just implementing a small fun activity like that kind of every now and then. Also really just kind of further stretches that joy out for me. And then yeah, I mean, half the time I get to go diving, so it's hard to not feel joyful for that. Although that being said, it can still get exhausting. And then having moments of like just being like, oh, this is so annoying, but then kind of always bring myself back to this, like, as soon as I in those moments kind of manage to be mindful and bring myself back to that moment, I kind of have these feelings of like, no, but I'm doing this because it brings me joy, and I might be having a moment of frustration, but it's kind of okay to sit and sit down and look at that, and kind of bring it back into that present time, bring it back to why it makes you feel joyful, or why it makes me feel joyful. So yeah, as Carrie said, we do have a bunch of tasks now for the rest of the week, that sort of every day that we want you to do, to see how you can, bring joy into your life, therefore also bringing joy into your business, because those two are kind of, married at the hip, and we can't see them as life, fun, business is business. We have to try integrate the idea that joy can be felt both in business and both in the personal, which kind of also, then makes business not so much business in its traditional sense. So we'll be having a few practices for you this week, a few cool little tasks to see how it goes. Carrie and I will be doing it with you as well, which is really exciting. So we'll be sharing on the group, and we hope you guys all share on the group any of your experiences, or drop us a message if you're like, wanting to chat about one of the things that comes up for you, or just to share it, because like I said, sharing it with people who are going to be excited that you had such a cool day, that you found so much joy in your day, is really, really cool. So yeah, we're excited to hear from you all, and have a wonderful day.